Now, existential statements, we just kind of talked about it, but it's the exact same setup, but the opposite. For existential statements, so let's say the statement is, there exists an X and D such that P of X. To prove, use let's say, to prove, find counterexample. Or sorry, just find regular example. So to prove, find example where it works. Find example that works. To disprove, show that P of X is false, or show that not P of X is true. Oh, it's not P of X being false for every X in D. Because remember, the negation of this there exists statement is for all X and D, we don't have P of X, the negation of P of X. So to disprove, we need to show that P of X must be false for every X and D. The opposite of there existing one X and D where P of X works is for every X and D, P of X won't work. And we can do this, and we can use method of exhaustion if D finite, or direct proof if D finite or infinite. So these are the four options. You prove a universal statement with method of exhaustion or direct proof, and you disprove with finding an example. You prove an existential statement by finding an example, and you disprove by using method of exhaustion or direct proof. And that should just make sense, I hope. And by the way, direct proof can be used on a lot more, can be used on finite domains. And it oftentimes should be. Direct proof is way easier and way better than method of exhaustion. Method of exhaustion goes through and checks every statement. Direct proof just checks properties, which is a lot easier. So you should almost always use direct proof. You might always use method of exhaustion if your proof only involves like a couple of things. Like if your domain is just 2 things, maybe it's easier just to check both things. But once it gets more, once it's like even 10 things, it's a lot easier to use a direct proof than to check all 10. Okay, any questions? Then that is the obligatory kind of boring definition stuff we have to get out of the way. Let's prove some crap.